1.3.
Fasting is an ancient tradition. The three Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, all trace it back to the prophets of the Old Testament. For example, many believe the Prophet Muhammad's first fast was probably Yom Kippur. Many Eastern religions trace their roots of fasting to ancient yogic and ascetic traditions. But while there are differences in approach and style, those who fast are most often hoping to increase spirituality and come closer to the divine. Dr. Diana Eck, professor of comparative religion at Harvard Divinity School, says fasting accomplishes this in part by breaking an attachment to material things.
And of course, the most repetitive attachment to earthly things is that we enact every day by our desire for food. So there is a way in which breaking that, even in a symbolic way, speaks against the consumption, the materialism that is so pervasive in our world.
Professor Barbara Patterson of Emory University is an Episcopal priest. She says fasting is similar to the discipline displayed by an athlete in a gym, although in the case of fasting, it's a spiritual gym.
There's a celebration itself in establishing a discipline for oneself and actually working, making decisions, forming the will, if you would say, intention, to be able to move through a time where there's a certain amount of stress that's not undoing, but that gives you a sense of your capacities. It's very much a way of sharpening the heart's capacities.
The Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, the Mormons, fast the first Sunday of every month. They skip 2 meals and take the money they would have spent on those meals and give it to the poor. Mormon Bart Marcois says fasting helps to foster humility and gratitude, allowing him to put aside his human competitiveness. In Islam, during the holy month of Ramadan, Muslims fast from sunrise to sunset, refraining from food, water, smoking, and sex. Dr. Akbar Ahmed, a professor of Islamic studies at American University, says in this time of rapid change and fear, fasting is vital to spiritual well-being.
Because if you do not withdraw during the day, then the replenishment of the soul is not being affected. And when that does not happen, then over time, the individual begins to become exhausted, spiritually exhausted.
Dr. Ahmed says the rhythm of life has become so hectic, so fast-moving, that finding time to pull back from our daily lives, even temporarily, has become more difficult than ever. But he says that only means the need for it has never been greater, and that the ancient tradition of fasting is still necessary, even in the 21st century. Duncan Moon, NPR News, Washington.
.2.
If you're just joining us, I'm talking to John Everly, who has just returned from a 4-week journey through the Himalayas. You mentioned before the break that you came home with a feeling of well-being. Tell me more about this.
Well, just getting away from the hectic pace of the city had the effect of replenishing my energy, and I think it had something to do with visiting the monasteries. It's amazing to see the ascetic life the monks lead. They have such little reliance on material things.
How do they do it? What compensates for the hundreds of things we have that fill up our lives?
Definitely fasting plays a major role in their lives. To possess the will to refrain from eating or drinking anything for up to 3 days, this gives them both strength and serenity.
How many monasteries did you visit?
3.
Well, we don't have much time left. Why don't you talk briefly about one of the monasteries you visited?
Definitely the best experience I had was in a small monastery in the Ladakh region. I just happened to arrive on the day of a full moon, which is when these monks begin to fast, so I actually fasted along with them.
Fascinating. Can you tell us more about this experience?
Well, the first thing that hit me was how incredibly out of touch I had been with myself, both physically and spiritually.
Do you think you experienced the same feelings a Buddhist monk does after a 3-day fast?
I don't think it's really possible for someone from our lifestyle to reach the same level they do. They use the fast as a means of purification, and this allows the mind to be totally free. I think most of us have so much inner turmoil, it would take years to free our minds to this point. Doing yoga in my regular life would probably help calm some of that turmoil.
I'd love to have you back on the show to share more of your experiences.
Well, there's a lot left to talk about.